Usually I would get in my Keynote or PowerPoint program and make 20 fancy slides and talk about a certain subject and then make it, write some thoughts down like I did a year or 2 years ago. But I'm going to do this new iPhone take, or I record from my iPhone, and just see where it goes from here, that I am a white person, maybe, and that the word white is in itself a racial category. Maybe it is. It's certainly not an ethnic category. It's rather a social construct. I think there's two arguments here about being white. One person being white can be so the left believes that being white is a middle class value. That if you're white, you're kind of this admixtured, bastardized European person that wants to turn everything into a suburbs, or gentrify said cities into a suburbs, and create this romantic Judeo-Christian fantasy of being a soccer mom and a hardworking night shift dad, and that's the end of the future. Everybody goes to college, you keep having families, and it's like 1950s America again. I think that's what it means culturally to be white. It's this kind of lost 1950s fantasy of the quote-unquote American race. That's what it means to be white, according to this is a semantic argument. And what it means to be white on the right is to be European descended. Whether you're French, Hungarian, Irish, Polish, or come from that background, you are a part of a brotherhood of European people, like Jared Taylor has said, and that being white means that you are a European person. You belong to the white race. And therefore, when you hear taglines like "end white supremacy" or "I hate white people," it's like Mike Enoch says, like, you're anti-white, or anti-racism is a code word for anti-white. So there's two semantic arguments here. The left believes that whiteness and being white is not a peculiar race, it's a class thing. And the right believes, well, if you're white, you're black, and you're black, you're descended from Africans, and white, you're descended from European people, and race is a natural outcome. And that really has nothing to do with the most interesting divide here. It seems like the left doesn't want to talk about race, but they love talking about class. And the right, on the other hand, loves talking about race, but it doesn't want to talk about class. So again, left likes class, the right likes race, but both sides refuse to acknowledge a third position party with regards to semantic argument, and that the word white is very ambiguous. Naturally, when we hear white, it just means European descended people, and so I thought. But then when you really read into the whole whiteness studies and some, up to no good Jewish or non-white critical race theory, then they're really showing their true hatred against European deprived people. And so it walks a fine line. But at the same time, I'm coming to the conclusion, just like E. Michael Jones has said, is that, look, when you're white, you're not French, Italian, Irish, Polish, Russian, or any of those backgrounds. You're white. You're just an admixture American race of white Americana that has been deracinated from identity, and therefore you should take pride in white nationalism, quote-unquote white pride, and things like that. And so that would ultimately mean, but Germans and French and all the other European group people know that being white is horrible. There was this white nationalist fantasy I remember reading on American Renaissance that all white Americans from Canton, Ohio, they should just move to Budapest. They should all just migrate to Budapest and learn Hungarian and then have sex with a Hungarian chick, and then their childs are like white American mixed with Hungarian, because that would save them from the disgrace that they're white Americans, that they are now Hungarian. They're no longer white, they're Hungarian. And so, this is kind of like a hilarious, like Antifa protest rant. Well, go back to Europe. It reminds me of very similar things what Malcolm X said about black people, that X stands for an unknown origin of where you belong to. If I really knew I was Nigerian or Sudanian, then I would have pride, but now I'm just black. I'm blackity black and black, and that's it. I'm worthless. And it's kind of this negative, even in the language of how to be black. or white is being lame and blacks being cool. These are words of the enemy. These are words of the oppression party. And somehow on the line, we have a quote-unquote white group of liberals in their Eurocentric communities, ultimately under this transhumanist singularity of trying to, they're all self-loathing. They want to kill themselves because they realize white isn't a true identity. And they all want to become Eurasian or Chinese or Japanese or Korean or even sometimes black, quote unquote, in order to escape the white middle class hell that was so abused by them and get rid of the left-wing, right-wing paradigm. And this sounds like a hilarious Keith Woods argument. And I noticed the third position is becoming its own force in the YouTube world. But at the same time, it's this whole cuck-centrist Trojan horse position to make everybody into white nationalists. We all know that, but at the same time, at least in the third position, they should be aware that being white is being a suburban retard, you know, being this kind of Philistine who, you know, you think Julius Evola would be accepted in far-right circles, but when you start a far-right family, there is something kind of off-putting with a black son in the living room, and they go, "Hail Hitler, honey." It doesn't make sense, even in like normal leftist jokes and neoliberals will point this out. It assumes that everyone is an individual and can do their own thing. It's sad because liberalism, or at least capitalism, is the byproduct of liberalism, and that really we are hungry, depraved of a father figure or paternal force that can help us go forward with life, that helps us make the good life. And there's already this sad investment of being white. It's the only people who are controlling my thoughts are white people, are white women, white girls who argue and say that I should think in universality, you know, like universalism. And it's actually non-whites or people who have a sense of racial identity, whether that's French or Japanese, that tell me real things about the difference between whites and blacks and race is real. So the only people being cucked are anyone who identifies as white. So what I'm really saying is that white nationalism is completely useless. And anybody who's a white nationalist at this point in time is being a facetious skinhead punk or being transgressive. Because you must think to yourself, do you really want to defend the suburbs of King of Prussia, Pennsylvania? Of course you don't. Why in the world would you defend against moms who want to bake cookies and dads who work the night shift, and it's this John K. Ren and Stimpy Jim Goad suburban nightmare? Of course you don't want that. You would rather want to be a cosmopolitan in New York City. Just remember, Julius Evola wrote a book criticizing the National Socialist Party for being too bourgeois, and that we lost sense of what it means to be culturally far right. You know, this is beyond left wing and right wing. This is basically an argument that when you play games of semantic arguments, you're okay. I can't, you know, I am probably by definition white and in the middle class. But again, this is a semantic misunderstanding from the far right. I don't see myself as a white person anymore. I see myself as Hungarian, Polish, Irish, French admixture that's looking for a new Eurasianist identity. That's how I see myself as, and that is a subculture. In no way is this a cuckolded position where I'm playing poker and all the other non-white people are cucking me over because I believe in universalism. I don't believe in egalitarianism, universalism, liberalism, or any cuckolded race-blind belief. We're depraved of our real, authentic Heideggerian identity, just like how we're depraved of our work, owning the means of production, our sexuality, our sexual identity, and we're depraved of friendship and companionship all the time because everybody is a byproduct of the system and that we're all useless. We have to stop using the word individualism. We have to go back to our roots because the real idiot is the stupid idiot who's a part of Left Book and writes junk articles about being a partisan, and he's fat and has a beard and he's into shitty metal with a stupid fucking goth Asian girlfriend who calls herself a broke bitch on Facebook. Those are the enemies. Those are the new cucks that we're up against. So this is definitely an uphill battle, but we will win. And the the first way of understanding this is that white nationalism is a completely useless pursuit and meant for queer homo nationalists. We have to end white supremacy in favor of reproducing European people. In other words, our battle is not, we're going against other people who want the suburbs. We're going against Sea Isle City, Strathmere, New Jersey, Trump voting blonde Stacys and Chads. Those are the enemies. We gotta kill all cheerleaders, and basically we need to go against. So it's almost like a paradox. So we need to use right-wing semantics, we need to be anti-white to be pro-white, quote unquote. And when I say pro-white, it's not protecting suburban culture, it's destroying suburban culture so we can protect the future of French, Italian, Irish. The real European brotherhood is a culture against the suburbs. And so we need to fight other whites to protect the future of real identities, and not, we have to kill the white man. That's what I'm saying. We need to kill the white man and white interest. And the real way to end white supremacy, that's a correct statement. And so the far right needs to brace that. That is our uphill battle right now.